Right now, there are coffee obsessives out there buying, $20 a pound incredibly exotic green coffee beans
Yeah.
from Panama or Ethiopia, taking them home.
And roasting them in a $12 hot air popcorn popper.
Exactly. A backyard popcorn
Yeah,
popper.
it is a genuinely wild juxtaposition. I mean,
Yeah.
you have this incredibly delicate, complex agricultural product, like something someone spent months cultivating,
Yeah.
and people are just blasting it with a tool meant for movie snacks.
Oh.
The gap between quality of the raw ingredient and, well, the crudeness of these DIY home tools has historically been just massive.
But that is rapidly changing, which brings us to today's topic.
Oh,
So welcome back to our second deep dive into the world of home coffee roasting.
glad to be back in the weeds.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this, consider yourself affectionately dubbed Bob the Coffee Nerd for the day, because we are really getting into the details.
Oh, we've got a lot to cover.
We really do. We have pulled together this massive stack of sources. I'm talking spec sheets, user reviews, commercial cafe setups, and deep dives from coffee roasting forums.
The forums are always where the real gold is.
Always. And our mission today is decoding one specific brand that is completely bridging this gap we just talked about. The gap between, a hobbyist's weekend toy and a massive industrial machine.
Right, we're talking about the Kaleido line of coffee roasters.
Yes. We're going to unpack the underlying technology that makes them so unique and, honestly, more importantly, help you figure out exactly which model makes sense for your kitchen counter or your small business.
Because the current trend of home roasting is shifting dramatically away from those hand-cranked pans over campfires. I mean, enthusiasts are demanding precision now.
They want the real deal.
Exactly. They want smart machines that offer the same data logging and thermal control as a massive commercial roastery, but, scaled down. And Kaleido has essentially reverse engineered the entire heating process to make that happen.
Right, because earlier I framed this shift to home roasting using a cooking analogy. Like, buying pre-roasted coffee is basically like buying a pre-cooked steak at the grocery store and just taking it home and microwaving it.
Which is a tragedy.
Absolute tragedy. Home roasting lets you be the chef. You control the exact sear, the resting period, the full flavor. But looking at Kaleido, they haven't just shrunk a traditional gas roaster, have they?
No, not at all. They
Yeah.
utilize this proprietary electric carbon fiber infrared heating system.
Okay, I have to admit, whenever I read purely electric heating element in the spec sheets, my brain instantly just defaults to like a glorified toaster oven.
Yeah, that's
Because a traditional commercial drum roaster relies on the raw, brute force thermal power of an open gas flame. So how on earth does an electric element replicate that kind of penetrating heat?
that is exactly what traditional roasters ask when they first see the specs. It is by far the most common skepticism you hear from the old guard.
I mean, it makes sense.
It does. But the key difference lies in the nature of infrared heat. A standard electric coil, like, in an old oven, relies heavily on heating the air, which then slowly heats the object.
Right.
But carbon fiber infrared technology, it radiates energy that physically penetrates the beans directly. And Kaleido pairs this with a stainless steel mesh drum rather than a solid steel drum.
Oh, so instead of waiting for a thick plate of solid steel to heat up and like slowly transfer that heat to the beans, the energy just passes right through the mesh.
You nailed it. The radiant energy just shoots straight through the slots in the drum, hitting the green coffee directly.
Yeah.
But it's actually a true hybrid system. They also circulate hot air through the roasting chamber.
So you're getting hit from all sides.
Exactly. You are getting convective heat from the hot air passing through the bean mass, conductive heat from the physical contact with the mesh drum itself, and radiant heat from the infrared elements.
That sounds intense.
It is.
Yeah.
You achieve incredibly high thermal energy transfer with surprisingly low power consumption.
Okay, but the sources also highlight a major hurdle for anyone trying to roast indoors, which is the smoke.
Oh, the smoke is a huge issue.
Right, because a standard commercial roaster requires these massive, expensive ventilation pipes punched straight through the roof of a building to handle the exhaust. How does an indoor electric unit deal with that?
So Kaleido integrated a smoke extraction system that relies on the Venturi effect.
Okay, wait, the Venturi effect.
Yeah, so instead of just slapping a massive noisy exhaust fan at the back of the machine.
Which I assume would aggressively suck all your carefully calibrated hot air right out of the roasting drum.
Exactly, it would ruin your thermal stability. So instead of that, they force exhaust air through a constricted section of pipe.
Oh, fluid dynamics at work.
Yes.
By constricting the airflow, the velocity increases, which creates a pressure drop. It basically acts like a vacuum.
Right, but a very gentle, localized vacuum.
Hmm.
It draws the smoke out of the roasting chamber without creating a disruptive draft that would, tank your environmental temperature.
That's brilliant.
It really is. It allows you to roast indoors without setting off every single smoke detector in your house.
I mean, you still need basic ventilation, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like an open window or placing it under your kitchen's stovetop extractor hood.
Yeah.
But it turns a heavy industrial exhaust problem into a highly manageable kitchen task.
Okay, so the hardware architecture is brilliant, but looking at the consumer side in our sources, the naming conventions online are incredibly confusing.
It's an absolute alphabet soup, I know.
It really is. I see M1, M1 Lite, M1S Pro, Dual. I mean, if we were going to help Bob the Coffee Nerd actually pick a machine,
Yeah.
we need to decode this software and naming structure first.
Let's strip away the confusion. First, the letter S. You will see M1S, M2S, and so forth. That simply stands for sealed.
Seal.
Yeah, it denotes the second-generation build of these machines, where Kaleido upgraded the airflow dynamics and sealed the chassis better to improve thermal efficiency.
Okay, got it.
So if you see an S, you are simply looking at the newer, current generation.
That helps immensely. Now, what about the control systems? Because it looks like for every physical size of the machine, you have to choose between 3 different brains to operate it: Standard, Pro, and Dual.
You are essentially choosing your user interface here. The standard version relies entirely on Kaleido's own touchscreen tablet.
Like a built-in iPad sort of thing.
Pretty much. It's an intuitive digital dashboard right on the machine. You input your temperature goals, set your fan speeds, and the machine follows your commands.
So if I go back to analogies, the standard version is essentially like driving a modern automatic car with a really nice built-in navigation screen. It's smooth, gets you from point A to point B, and doesn't ask you to overthink the engine.
That is a perfect way to frame it. The Pro version, however, ditches the tablet completely.
Interesting.
Yeah, it features a Bluetooth and USB module that connects directly to your PC or Mac, allowing you to run the roaster using a third-party open-source software called Artisan.
And from all the forums we pulled, Artisan is basically the absolute gold standard for roasting telemetry. Like, it turns the process into a literal data science project.
Oh, 100%. Artisan gives you a level of granular control that professionals rely on. It logs your bean temperature, your environmental temperature, and most importantly, it tracks your rate of rise, or R or R.
Okay, I want to pause on rate of rise because that concept comes up constantly in the reviews. From what I understand, it is the speedometer of the roast.
Exactly.
It tells you exactly how fast your bean temperature is increasing per minute. Why is monitoring that so critical?
Because coffee roasting is a series of complex chemical reactions, right? It's not just cooking. If your rate of rise drops to 0...
Meaning the temperature stops climbing and flatlines.
Exactly. If it flatlines, you stall the chemical momentum. This leads to what professionals call a baked roast.
Baked. That doesn't sound terrible.
Oh, it is. A baked coffee loses all its sweetness, its acidity vanishes, and it tastes hollow, almost like cardboard or flatbread. Yeah, not what you want from your exotic Ethiopian beans. Artisan allows you to watch that speedometer curve in real time, so you can anticipate a stall before it happens, increase the heat, and maintain a smooth, steadily descending curve.
And I imagine it lets you save those highly detailed curves so you can perfectly replicate a successful roast months later.
Exactly, which brings us to the third option, dual.
Let me guess. As the name implies, it gives you both.
You got it. The Kaleido touchscreen tablet for casual roasting, and the PC connection for Artisan when you want to get deeply analytical.
Giving you the ultimate flexibility depending on your mood. I love that.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds.
All right, let's move from the software brains to the physical muzzle. If I am sold on this infrared technology, how much machine do I actually need?
Right, the sizing.
Because looking at the product line, there is a massive leap from the countertop models to something that looks like it belongs in a warehouse. Let's look at the physics of these machines, starting with the entry-level M1 line.
So the M1, which includes the M1 Lite and the M1S, is your starting point. It handles a green coffee capacity of about 50 to 200 grams.
Okay.
It operates on a 1,000-watt power draw, weighs a very manageable 10 kilograms, and uses a single cooling fan. Even at this compact size, it achieves a rate of rise of 12 degrees Celsius per minute.
And total roast times are sitting in that 6 to 12 minute window.
Spot on.
200 grams of capacity is fascinating because that is incredibly small. That is roughly enough to fill a standard retail bag of coffee for one person for a week. But in the forums, users lovingly refer to the M1 as the espresso machine for roasting.
It really is. It seems to be the ultimate educational tool.
How so?
Well, it forces you to learn the sensory milestones of roasting without the financial anxiety of ruining large batches.
Right, because you're going to make mistakes.
Exactly. When you are learning, you need to understand the Maillard reaction, that crucial browning phase where amino acids and reducing sugars interact to create hundreds of complex flavor compounds.
And you need to physically hear first crack.
Right. Yes. First crack is a huge milestone. It's the moment the water inside the bean turns to steam, builds immense pressure, and physically fractures the cellulose structure of the bean.
Sounding exactly like popcorn popping.
Exactly like popcorn. And you will inevitably scorch or bake a roast while learning to identify these milestones. So destroying 100 grams of coffee hurts your wallet a lot less than destroying a full kilo.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But then we look at the next step up, the M2S. The capacity jumps to 400 grams. The power leaps to 1,600 watts. And critically, it upgrades to 2 cooling fans. Why is that extra cooling power necessary for a slightly larger batch?
It comes down to the exothermic phase of roasting.
The thermic.
Yeah. After first crack, the coffee beans actually start generating their own heat. They act like little hot coals.
Oh, wow.
So when you drop 400 grams of 400-degree beans out of the drum, they will continue to roast themselves right there in the cooling tray if you don't aggressively strip that heat away.
So the 2 cooling fans ensure the chemical reactions halt immediately the second the beans exit the drum.
Exactly, preserving the exact flavor profile you targeted.
So the 1,600 watts in the M2 also pushes the maximum rate of rise up to 18 degrees Celsius per minute. That is a serious jump in thermal power. But if we keep scaling up, we get the M6S, which moves into small commercial territory.
Right. The M6S handles 200 to 700 grams. We are now drawing 2,300 watts of power, and the machine weighs 20 kilograms.
Okay, what does that jump to 2,300 watts actually feel like for the user? I mean, practically speaking.
Practically, it feels like ultimate agility. At 2,300 watts, you aren't just slowly pushing the temperature up, you are actively manipulating thermal momentum.
Like driving a sports car.
Exactly. If you decide you need to push the heat aggressively to highlight the bright fruity acids in a Kenyan coffee, the M6 responds almost instantly. You have the horsepower to dictate the pace of the roast rather than just reacting to it.
Which brings us to the absolute behemoth of the line, the M10S.
The big boy.
This machine handles 300 to 1,200 grams. That's over a full kilo of coffee per batch. It weighs nearly 50 pounds, and it draws 2,600 watts. Now, I have to push back on this from a practical standpoint.
Go for it.
You cannot just plug a 2,600 watt appliance into a flimsy power strip in a tiny apartment kitchen next to your blender. It will trip the breaker immediately, right? Who is that actually for?
You are absolutely right to call that out, and it is a crucial distinction. A 2,600 watt draw requires a dedicated 20 amp circuit.
Yeah, definitely.
You are not running your microwave and an M10 on the same kitchen wall outlet. The M10 is not a casual kitchen appliance. It is built for serious, sustained production.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you look closely at the spec sheets for the M10, you'll notice a subtle shift in the physics of the roast, too.
Really? Like what?
Well, while the smaller models comfortably finish a roast in 6 to 12 minutes, the M10 at full capacity requires 8 to 15 minutes.
Wait, why the slowdown? If it has 2,600 watts of raw power, shouldn't it be faster?
This is where thermal mass and thermal momentum become critical. Imagine dropping 1.2 kilograms of dense, room temperature green coffee into that drum all at once.
Oh, right.
It acts as a massive thermal sponge. It violently tanks the environmental temperature inside the roaster. You have a massive heating element to bounce back from that drop, but you cannot just blast the beans with maximum infrared heat to speed it up.
Right, because if you blast it, you just scorch the outside of the bean to ash before the heat ever penetrates the core.
Precisely the danger.
Right.
The heat has to patiently soak into the dense center of that massive pile of beans. The M10 has the power reservoir to handle that momentum, but physics dictates a slightly longer development time to ensure 1.2 kilos roast evenly from the outside in.
Okay, let's synthesize all of this for Bob the Coffee Nerd listening right now. We know the capacities, we know the power requirements. How do we match the specific model to the user's actual lifestyle?
Okay, so for absolute beginners wanting to just dip their toes into the chemistry of roasting, the M1 Lite remains the most forgiving educational entry point.
Got it.
But for the serious home enthusiast, which likely makes up the bulk of our audience, The M2 is the absolute sweet spot.
Let's dig into that. Because if I just want to drink, say, 2 really incredible fresh cups of coffee a day, why wouldn't I stick to the M1? Why spend the extra money and dedicate the extra counter space to the larger M2?
It ultimately comes down to workflow and thermal inertia.
Workflow.
Yeah. If you are drinking 2 cups a day, roasting on the tiny M1 means you might find yourself forced to race every 3 days just to keep up with your consumption.
Oh, I see. It quickly turns a fun weekend hobby into a mandatory weekday chore.
Exactly. Whereas roasting 400 grams on the M2 yields enough coffee to comfortably supply a household for a week to 10 days.
That makes a lot of practical sense. But what did you mean by thermal inertia?
Think of it like driving a heavy luxury sedan on the highway versus a lightweight go-kart.
Okay, I like where this has gone.
The M2 has a larger drum and more ambient thermal mass. When you make micro adjustments to the heat or fan speed during a roast, the larger mass of the M2 absorbs those changes smoothly. It is much more forgiving.
Because the go-kart, the M1, is going to feel every single bump.
Exactly. The M1, being smaller, is highly reactive. A small tweak in heat creates a sudden wave that can easily throw your roast off track if you aren't paying close attention.
I love that analogy. The bigger machine absorbs the bumps in the road. And I imagine the M6 and M10 are strictly for the folks looking to monetize the craft.
Oh, definitely. The M6 serves the advanced semi-pro, perhaps someone supplying a local farmer's market. And the M10 is a true 10-year production asset designed to be the backbone of a commercial cafe's wholesale operation.
To bring this out of the realm of spec sheets and theory, the sources we reviewed provided some incredible real-world applications of these machines in the wild. Like, one user documented their experience roasting a highly delicate Ethiopian natural coffee using an M2 at home.
Oh, I remember that one. Natural processed coffees are notoriously difficult to roast.
Why is that?
Because the coffee cherry is dried whole, with the fruit still attached to the seed. So the resulting green bean is coated in dried fruit sugars.
And sugar burns.
Oh, it loves to burn and scorch the second the temperature gets too high. Additionally, the beans in a natural lot often vary wildly in size and density.
Yet, this home user, utilizing the M2 paired with the artisan software, was able to execute a flawless profile.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Right. By watching that rate of rise telemetry on their laptop in real time, they could pinpoint the exact second first crack finished. They dropped the heat with surgical precision to stretch out the development phase, preserving those delicate, sought-after blueberry and jasmine notes without introducing a single hint of ashy or roasty flavors.
That is a highly technical, professional-level maneuver executed on a kitchen counter.
And on the entirely opposite end of the spectrum, we reviewed accounts from commercial operators, like a cafe owner named Roberto.
Right, Roberto and his M10.
He relies on the M10 as his daily driver. He described it as a cost-effective, incredibly energy-efficient production workhorse that runs back-to-back batches all day to fulfill his wholesale orders.
It is genuinely fascinating to me that the exact same engineering team built a tool for a guy meticulously experimenting with an Ethiopian natural in his pajamas.
And a commercial cafe fulfilling 50 pounds of wholesale orders a week.
That scalability is the sheer brilliance of the Kaleido ecosystem. The software interface and the fundamental infrared heating physics remain identical across the entire product line.
So it's all muscle memory.
Completely. A roaster could theoretically buy an M1 to learn the craft in their garage. If they eventually decide to open a commercial roastery, they can purchase an M10, and every single skill they learn, their understanding of the artisan software, their muscle memory, even the general shape of their roast profiles, transitions seamlessly to the massive machine.
You don't have to relearn your entire profession when you upgrade your equipment. All right, so we have looked at the heating tech, decoded the software, and analyzed the physical realities of scaling up. If we have to deliver a final verdict for the listener looking for the best overall value in this crowded lineup, where do we land?
Well, while the M1 provides an excellent low-risk sandbox for raw beginners, the Kaleido M2 ultimately delivers the most compelling balance for the dedicated home enthusiast.
The sweet spot.
The sweet spot. It offers the ideal intersection of weekly capacity, manageable physical footprint, forgiving thermal mass, and professional-level data logging.
Nice.
It basically provides enough headroom to continually grow your skills without demanding the dedicated circuitry and commercial infrastructure of the larger models.
At the beginning of the show, I made the comparison that buying pre-roasted coffee is like buying a pre-cooked steak at the grocery store and taking it home to microwave it.
The tragic microwave steak.
Yes. You are entirely at the mercy of whoever cooked it weeks ago. Roasting at home means you're buying the raw Wagyu beef and you are the chef. You control the exact sear, the resting period, the final expression of flavor.
And the M2 is basically that high-end precision backyard grill setup that makes you look like a Michelin star chef to your friends.
Exactly. But as you pointed out earlier, owning the grill is only step one.
It is. The machine is ultimately just a tool. A very smart, highly capable tool, but it cannot roast the coffee for you. Mastering this craft requires profound patience.
And attention to detail.
Yes, it requires developing your senses, using your sight to monitor the color change, your smell to catch the transition from grassy to sweet caramel, your hearing to catch the very first pop of first crack.
And marrying those physical senses with the hard data on your screen.
Precisely.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to chew on. When you invest in a machine with this level of precision, your relationship with the coffee farmer fundamentally shifts.
Oh, absolutely.
You are no longer just a passive consumer tearing open a foil bag and pouring hot water over grounds. You step into the role of the final critical link in a massive, arduous agricultural chain.
That's a great way to put it.
You become directly responsible for unlocking the true potential of a bean that a farmer spent months growing, harvesting, and processing halfway across the world. So Bob the Coffee Nerd, the question isn't just which model of Kaleido you are going to put on your counter.
No, it's not.
The real question is, what origin of green coffee are you going to choose to honor first?
A phenomenal question to end on. The journey really begins after you unbox the machine.
It really does.
Yeah.
We will catch you on the next deep dive.